Hi, thank you, Josh. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to today's educational series. We today are going to be talking a little bit about organizing your nutrition and some tips for meal prep and building a balanced plate. So, our outline for today is going through my plate, talking about some benefits of balanced meals, some pre prepping tips for meal prep, and then we'll talk about meal prep tips, where to begin, some of the benefits of meal prep. Lastly, we'll provide you guys with some resources that can help you out on your meal prepping journey, and we'll end with any additional questions or comments that you guys have. But first, just to introduce us, my name is Maggie Farrell. I am currently in the dietetic internship here at Texas State, and I'm in a rotation at Wildcats. I graduated from Michigan State University last year with a bachelor's of science in dietetics. And when I'm through at Texas State University, I will have my master's in human nutrition.
Morning, everyone, or good afternoon at this point, I guess. My name is Amanda Hutchison. I'm a registered dietitian. I have my undergraduate degree in dietetics from the University of Northern Colorado and also completed the dietetic internship here at Texas State. In May, I'll be graduating with a master's of human nutrition from here. And I'm the Wellcats GA, which is why I get to do fun stuff like present to all of you. So, before we dive into some of the awesome meal planning tips that Maggie has prepared for us, we're going to talk a little bit about My Plate. In the chat, or if you turn your video on and wave your hand at me, have any of you used My Plate before or heard of My Plate maybe? I'll give you a second if you're going to type. Yes, okay, so we have some yeses. Yeah, let's go through it together. Yeah. So you have the plate at home. That's awesome. That's super cool. So if anyone hasn't heard of My Plate, or in case you need a little refresher, My Plate is just a super awesome, super useful tool that the USDA created to help us know what should go on a healthy plate, the things that can help us make our meals more nutritious. So um, it's just broken down into these categories to kind of show us how much of each food item should be on our plate. So, according to My Plate, we should be making about half of our plate fruits and vegetables. I know for me, if I'm not thinking about my plate when I'm serving up my food, fruits and vegetables often end up about a quarter of my plate instead of a half. So, that's a really great one to pay attention to. Protein should be about a quarter of the plate. And just like I was saying, when I'm not paying attention, that can definitely end up being a little bit more and take the place of some of my vegetables. A quarter of our plate should be from grains, and for about half the day, we should be trying to make those whole grains. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. And then we want to make sure we include a little dairy or a little calcium as well. So, going into what those foods can be a little deeper, starting with fruits and vegetables. The most important rule is to eat fruits and vegetables that you like and that you enjoy eating, because there's nothing worse than eating foods that you don't like. So, yeah, I just encourage you to eat any produce you like and maybe be a little brave in exploring what's in season or some fruits and vegetables that you haven't tried before. Just trying to get as diverse of a diet with fruits and vegetables as you can, and with all of these items, really. So, just aiming for multiple colors. If you have littler kids, this can be a super fun game to play with them that I recommend to people quite often, is seeing if you can get all the colors of the rainbow on your plate. Next, we have proteins. For those, we want to try and aim for those to be lean proteins most of the time. So those are things like fish, beans, eggs, poultry, lentils. It's not on here, but we also have soy products as a great protein source. And then for whole grains, those are what we're aiming to eat. About half of our grains a day is whole grains. And a whole grain is literally just the whole grain. So a refined grain has some of the parts of the grain stripped away. And those parts have actually a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins and minerals that are essential for our bodies to function super well and just can benefit us in a lot of different ways. So aiming to eat those whole grains helps us incorporate those vitamins and minerals and that fiber into our diet. There's lots of different whole grains. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but whole grains include whole grain pasta or bread, which can be really easy swaps if you're not using those currently and you like the taste of them. Brown rice, something like quinoa or farro, which is a little more unique. I don't know if has anyone ever used maybe farro before? Can you tell me in the chat? It's a bit of a unique one, I think. It's not one we hear about super often.
I've had it in like a salad before. I think
Yeah, that's a great place to have them. That's awesome. Perfect. And then some other whole grains are oats, surprisingly. You might not think of oats as a whole grain, but they are. And then my personal favorite, corn tortillas. Who doesn't love corn tortillas, right? And then last, Patty's made a autumn farro salad. Yeah, that's great. And yes, oats are a whole grain. And then our last category is dairy or a calcium source. Maybe you're lactose intolerant like me, or you just don't like dairy. Then it's totally fine to swap that out with just a calcium rich food instead. It's just important to get calcium in our diets for bone health and heart health, especially as we age. So just try and be on the lookout when you're making meals to include those. And that can be soy products, almonds are a great source, and then any leafy green is also a great source. Okay, and then what does a My Plate meal look like? Does it have to literally look like that plate that Laura says that she has at home? No, it can. It can look like these meals that we're seeing on the left, maybe that salad, a little quarter plate of meat, a little quarter plate of our whole grain, our corn tortillas. But it doesn't have to. I think when we talk about My Plate, a lot of the time we can get maybe overwhelmed or feel limited that all our meals have to look like these foods on the left, which they definitely can. But mixed meals are absolutely still My Plate meals too. So if your food looks like the food on the right, that's still great. Just make sure you're portioning it out when you're making it the same way you would when you're thinking about the My Plate principles. Try and make half of the dish you're making vegetables, a quarter from protein, a quarter from grains, and try and get that dairy or calcium source in. And then what are the benefits of eating these balanced My Plate meals? Well, there are a lot, but we're just going to go through a few right now. So one of the best things about eating all these foods together is that they can increase fullness throughout our day. So if you're like me and you get really busy, sometimes you won't eat till the end of the day, or you'll just snack here or there, and then you'll just be so hungry throughout the day. But when we eat all these foods together, it can really help us stay full for the whole day. And that can provide us with sustainable energy for the day. For example, maybe if you just eat something like toast, just plain toast, on the way out of the door, your energy levels are not going to last super long, even though we love toast and it's super tasty. But adding foods in that we know from My Plate that are balanced, like maybe adding in some peanut butter as our protein, maybe a banana on top as our fruit, that can help our bodies use the energy in those foods longer and help us stay full longer. And by making sure we're adding all the foods from My Plate, we're also making sure we get the max amount of nutrients in our diet and making sure our body's getting what it needs to function well and to function at its best. And all of those benefits can help us manage and prevent chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes, which is a great thing to watch out for.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about actually meal prepping and some tips for it. But I wanted to start off with a little bit of a question because I know that meal prepping can seem overwhelming sometimes. So I was curious what you guys see as the biggest barrier to meal prep. You can unmute or type in the chat. Anyone?
Laura says shopping beforehand so I have the items when I have time to prep. And then Stephanie said eating the same things 5 days in a row.
Okay,
Great
perfect.
comments.
I think there's one more.
Yeah, we have a few more. Planning ahead, taking time on a Sunday and having kids at home is hard. Finding those healthy recipes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll address most of those barriers hopefully throughout this presentation, the rest of this presentation. And if you have any more questions at the end, we'll have time for those as well. Okay, so I wanted to start by outlining some prep steps for meal prep. I know it sounds kind of weird, but these are some simple steps that can make the process a lot easier. So these steps are doing a pantry clean out, stocking up on basics, and then investing in kitchen and pantry supplies. I'll go over these steps in a bit more detail in the following slides. So, doing a pantry clean out, I know that this one can sound kind of scary and over the top, but it really doesn't have to be. It simply means throwing out expired items, donating foods that you don't see yourself eating. Like if you got like a canned product like a year ago and you have no reason why or no need for it, then donating that and taking inventory on what you do need to stock up for, which we will talk about in the next step. This is also a great time to organize your pantry or fridge in a way that makes sense to you and will make cooking easier. So, for example, like I think I recently, it was like a couple weeks ago, or reorganized my spice cabinet because things were just everywhere. And so when it came to making a meal with a lot of spices, I just kind of like threw it in. I was like, salt and pepper, it's fine. But I organized it, with like herbs and then mixed seasonings and like garlic and then spicy seasonings. Just that makes sense to me. Or I also have like really high cabinets. So putting things that I use every day at eye level and that I can reach. And then maybe things like I don't use soy sauce all the time or hot sauce up on the more top level. So that way I don't use them as often. Okay. So I think it's also important when you are prepping for this meal prepping journey to note what you needed to stock up on. So this, like I said, can be done when you're cleaning out your pantry. And it's all about stocking up on non-perishable basics that you use often. So non-perishable means things that won't go bad super quickly that you can kind of keep in your pantry. So, some of these items are common spices that you might use frequently. So, for me, those are like salt, pepper, taco seasonings, red pepper flakes, garlic powder, oregano, stuff like that. So, it all depends on what you like to make. Common condiments that you like to have on hand, like mayo, mustard, ketchup, soy sauce, hot sauce, peanut butter, if that's a condiment. And then broths for soups, making rice. Those are a really good option to add in some quick flavor. Cooking oils and sprays like olive, canola, and vegetable oil. And then I like to keep on hand garlic, onion, and potatoes. So garlic and onion can stay for a pretty long time in like a dark, dry space in your house. And those are really great to chop up and add to um, basically anything, eggs, stir fries, a lot of different dishes. And they can just really enhance the flavor. I also really like to have potatoes on hand because it's just a really quick and easy carb source for sweet or regular potatoes. And then I recommend stocking up on your favorite grains. So, like Amanda said, that's the oatmeal, brown rice, I put down barley, which is also kind of a different grain, quinoa, pasta. Breads won't stay as long, but if you put them in the freezer and then you can pop them out, those will stay a little bit longer that way. So I think I like to say to stock up on these because they can be used as a quick base for any meal, especially when you like, I think bowls are really trendy now, which I'll talk about later in the presentation, but they're a really great base for bowls. And then you always have that carbohydrate on hand. If you don't have enough time to prepare rice or are like me, and I am really, really terrible at making rice for some reason, I recommend stocking up on a microwavable variety. You can purchase these in the frozen food aisle or the dry food aisle. And usually I think they take like 5 minutes ish to make. And it's just a really easy way. You can pop that in your bag to bring to work to microwave or make it beforehand. And I think that's a really great option as well. Lastly, I like to recommend stocking up on canned or dried beans if you like them. Canned are really easy to just crack open, strain, and rinse, and then you have an easy protein source to put on salads and with your rice or in burritos, whatever you want. But I think that's just, if you're running late and you need a quick protein source, that's a good option. So, with the investing in kitchen and pantry supplies, this also can kind of sound a little bit overboard, but there really is no need to go overboard here. Just keeping it basic. So, some of the things on this slide I'm going to talk about are definitely not necessary. But the ones that I do view as pretty necessary or helpful are a saucepan with a lid. So the one here is a little bit shallower and it can be used for eggs, pan frying meats and poultry. It can be used for stir fries. It's pretty versatile. And then even like a deeper one could be used for making pasta or oatmeal, rice, soups. And so those two sizes would be pretty helpful there. Measuring cups, because those are really helpful when measuring out spices or proportions for making rice. Um, I'm sure a lot of us have those, but they're helpful. And then knives, you definitely don't need like the full set, but I do think it's helpful when you have a nice pair of knives, maybe one to two, just because it makes things so much easier to chop. It's safer, and just taking really good care of them. I learned recently you're not supposed to put them in the dishwasher. So I just thought that was an interesting tip to share with you guys if you want to keep your knives sharp, to hand wash them. And then Tupperware containers, of course, because if you're going to be taking things on the go or you need a place to save this food. So I like the glass ones. They are a little bit more expensive, but I think that if you're reheating things, they stay a lot better and they don't absorb as much of the flavor of whatever you are keeping in there or reheating. And then the last like thing that I view as kind of a necessity is a baking sheet, and I'm sure a lot of us have these. It's very useful for baking chicken or meat, roasting veggies, and like the sheet pan meals are awesome if you put foil down on them, and then you can put your veggies on there, you can put your meat on there, and then just roast it, and then take the foil off, and it's very easy cleanup. So, some supplies that I wanted to mention that are definitely not necessary, but they can help the process go smoother are strainers. I just thought of this one because we were talking about the canned beans. There are other ways to get the juices out, but I think strainers are really helpful when it comes to that, or draining pasta, obviously, among other things. I put down an immersion blender here because I just think it's really helpful to make purees, sauces. It's just something that you basically put right in a pot and you can make like bisques, soups. It's just really easy for cleanup as well. And then the last thing that I use all the time is an instant pot or pressure cooker. I use this for rice or shredded chicken. I think that shredded chicken I'll put in there for like 8 minutes and you can shred up the chicken really easily. So usually on the weekends, I will use that to make both shredded chicken and rice. And it's like a total of an hour that it takes for me to make those two things. And they're great basis for a lot of different meals that I can have throughout the week. Okay. So now on to actual meal prepping. And so we have all of our prep steps and we're ready to kind of start this process. In this section, I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of meal prep, walk you through a couple of steps to help you start your journey, discuss some time saving hacks during meal prep, and then I'm going to finish with 2 recipes that use the same ingredients but get different flavors. So that kind of addresses like the issue of eating the same thing. Okay. So first, some of the benefits of meal prep. I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of these, but I just wanted to remind you. Um, Meal prepping can save money because less money is spent eating out. I'm sure we've all been there where we're like running out the door to work and realize that we have nothing to eat. So then you have to pick up something, even if that wasn't what you wanted to do, which can be expensive. Buying in bulk obviously can save money, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Not making daily runs to the grocery store. I feel like when I don't plan out my meals and have a grocery list going in, I make like 3 or 4 trips to the grocery store, which is really expensive. And then that goes hand in hand with optimizing your groceries. So when I make my grocery list, I look every time in my fridge to see what I have left over from last week and try to incorporate that into an early meal, um, a meal earlier in the week, and then you reduce that waste and also don't have to spend more money buying food that you don't need. So meal prep also saves time. That's kind of the idea of it. Um, some people might perceive that it's a time commitment, but it just takes a little bit to get into a routine. And then I think that it kind of just fits into your schedule once you find a schedule that works for you. And then the 2 other benefits are your health goals. So, like Amanda said, meal prepping can really make sure that you have a balanced meal. So, meal prepping veggies, meal prepping a carbohydrate source, protein, just throwing those all in, a Tupperware container can ensure that you have that balanced meal. Other ways that it benefits your health is it allows you to know exactly what you're putting into your food and control the amount of, let's say, salt, butter, oils, sugar, and allows you to make healthy swaps. It can also increase your confidence in the kitchen. So committing to meal prep and trying new recipes every week is a great way to um, try new recipes and see what you like. It's a great way to try different cuisines and switch up your meal routine. But also, it's going to encourage you to try or to gain new skills, like let's say dicing an onion or chopping fresh garlic. So I just suggest starting slow and sticking with it. So maybe trying 1 new recipe a week or not wearing yourself out. um, so yeah, okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about mapping out your meals and planning ahead to set aside days for meal prep. So I think it's important to plan out the meals ahead of time so that way you can put together a grocery list and have a plan when you go into the grocery store. And the next slide will be when I talk a little bit more about creating a really great grocery list. But first, I wanted to talk about some important steps. So, mapping out the meals that you have beforehand can be important to help guide your shopping. I think it's also important to think about what days of the week you want to shop, and then also what days of the week you have more time to devote to meal prep. And this is where I really encourage you to be realistic with your schedule and set aside, it could be 2 to 3 hours, 2 to 3 times a week, or maybe it's 1 hour or 4 to 5 hours 1 day a week. It all depends on your schedule. Okay. So I just wanted to provide you guys with some tips for creating grocery lists. I really love to make grocery lists, so I thought this was kind of fun, and I really think it can make a big difference in not getting stressed out around meal prepping and knowing that you have a plan going into each week. So, first off, I always encourage people to write out the weekly meals prior to going, but also make sure that while you're writing out your weekly meals, you're making your grocery list. So, looking through all the ingredients in that meal and writing them down as you're going through it and checking what you have in your pantry. I also think that this is helpful because it forces you to go through the things that you need to pick up. And some tips that I have here when thinking about your meals are buying in bulk and then also looking at what's on sale at the grocery store. So I'm not sure if you guys have, if you guys shop at like HEB or Randall's. I know HEB has a great app and website where it kind of has the different sales and then also the coupons. So basing your meals off that is a great way to save some money. Or even shopping in season is also important to consider here because A, it's going to be cheaper, and then B, it's going to probably taste better because it's in season. Like I said, buying in bulk or stocking up on your favorites. I'm not sure if you guys are members of Costco or Sam's Club, but I'll usually go once a week or once a month there and buying some items that we use frequently, like snacks or those. I buy like rice packets that you can microwave. I buy meat that I freeze, and that really saves a lot of money. And it just ensures that I have these items on hand when I need them. Another tip that sounds kind of simple, but it helps out a lot is organizing your list based on the section. I think that this is really helpful because it helps you to kind of guide your grocery shopping. I don't know if you guys have been there where you're like going from aisle to aisle and then you realize that you have to go back to the produce section and you just end up running all around the grocery store. But that definitely is not time efficient. So I like that tip as well. So I added this slide for a little template on for your grocery shopping and menu planning. I like this one because it kind of just shows how you can have them side by side, and the grocery list is organized by aisle. Definitely don't need to get all of these types of groceries every time you go, but it kind of forces you to think through like, oh, do I need a spice for this new recipe? Or do I need some canned corn? Like things that you might not think about. And then here it has breakfast, lunch, and dinner for Monday through Sunday. And you definitely don't need to plan out all your meals for every single day or every single meal. Like, usually, I know I have enough time for breakfast, so I don't usually plan it out that much. I just make sure to have foods on hand that I like to eat. And then again, on the weekends, if you just want to play it by ear, go out to eat, whatever, that's great. Just don't fill that portion in. And I also like this because it has a little reminder of the My Plate and kind of reminds you to be like, oh, yeah, I probably should get some fruits and vegetables while I'm at the store to have that balanced plate. So, this next slide here, too, is just a sample schedule. And I liked it because it shows how you can be flexible with meal prep. This person, it looks like, chose to rotate between two breakfasts, which I like that idea of having a savory and then a sweeter breakfast. They had baked oatmeal in a breakfast sandwich and alternated those two. I find myself doing this often. I think I'll usually have like baked oatmeal, and we've been loving breakfast burritos recently. So you just wrap those up in foil and you can put them in your fridge or freezer depending on how often you'll eat them. I also like this example because it looks like this person meal prepped recipe 1 and 3 like on Sunday, but then they relied on recipe like some of these dinner recipes to be their lunches later in the week. And so that's another tip that I have is if you want to meal prep maybe 1 or 2 recipes for lunches and dinner, well then have some larger portions at when you make your dinner, and then you can use those for lunch the next day. Okay. And then also just like this final handout that I posted because it does walk you through all of the different sections of My Plate and gives you some really cost effective or budget friendly ideas for that. And so, like fruits, it has some cheaper whole fruits, apples and bananas. And then it gives you kind of your dairy or your calcium source here, some really cheap and easy protein foods, same with vegetables, and then grains. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an example of building a balance bowl, and this brings in what Amanda had talked about. I like to use the example of bowls because, like I said, I think that they're pretty popular now. And let's be honest, when we're eating on the go, it's very rare that we're going to have like a super balanced plate. But you can also kind of think about this idea in terms of a wrap or sandwich as well. So it looks like with this bowl, we have some brown rice, radish, avocado, hard boiled egg, feta cheese, and feta cheese. And so I just wanted to go through and talk about um, what each component is. So we have the carbohydrate with the brown rice, and then some other easy carbohydrates that we can take that are easy to meal prep ahead of time include sweet potatoes or regular potatoes, brown or white rice, quinoa, pasta, or wraps or bread. And then there's hard boiled eggs as the protein source. And I think hard boiled eggs are pretty underrated when it comes, if you like eggs, especially to meal prepping. Like they are so easy. I think they take like usually 8 minutes to make, and they'll last in your fridge for, I think, 7 days. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But I think that they last a little while. And you can buy them pre boiled as well. Some other easy protein sources are making a larger batch of grilled or shredded chicken that you could throw in a bowl, chickpeas, lentils, or black beans, pulled pork, and then ground beef or turkey. Also, some low sodium deli meat would work well here as well. And then in this bowl, for the color or fruit or vegetable is radishes. And I kind of like that because it just reminded me to like switch it up sometimes because I rarely have radishes, but it looks so pretty and it's just exciting to try something new. Obviously, any fruit or vegetable will work here. There's also some avocado, which gives us a little bit more color as well. And then for the fat or dressing, this is really important because we want it to keep us full. And so fat kind of has that satisfying fullness factor. So that we, when we eat this bowl, we're going to stay full throughout the day, are able to work and not like reaching for snacks constantly, which I think is important to be productive. So in this bowl here, we have some feta cheese, some avocado. I think there's also like pine nuts here. So a nut, but other like fat or dressing that you could put on bowls are hummus, olive oil, pesto, your dressing of choice, guacamole, or avocado. So this kind of goes with what I was talking about earlier. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of my Instant Pot, so this kind of is from my personal experience, but it just shows how you can make some basic ingredients go two completely different ways. So I have on this slide, it says simple ingredients, new flavors. So our basic ingredients that you could meal prep ahead of time are shredded chicken, some roasted vegetables, and some brown rice. For the sake of this idea, the roasted vegetables were bell peppers and tomatoes. And then you can create a shredded chicken rice, a shredded chicken burrito bowl out of it. So like more a Mexican flavor or a Mediterranean power bowl. And these both use the shredded chicken and brown rice. The only difference is the burrito bowl also has black beans roasted or in salsa, and that kind of gives it the flavor. And then the Mediterranean Power Bowl has mixed salad and then hummus and feta cheese. And so that gives it a completely different flavor and kind of is a nice way to switch it up. So, okay. So now I wanted to provide you guys with some resources that can kind of help you out, I think, quite a bit. Like I said, with the eggs, I really am not sure how long those will last in the fridge. And so I thought it was helpful to provide you guys with a cold food storage chart. I think it's like 3 to 4 pages long. It's pretty helpful. And it talks about, cooked chicken, raw chicken, cooked grains. It walks you through a lot of those foods that you might meal prep ahead of time. I also put on here vegetable roasting times. I think that roasted vegetables are so good and it can really help increase your fruit and vegetable intake. So I put that on there. I think it's like a 1 page chart and it's really easy to read all the different times. And then finally, I put the MyPlate website here. It just goes over the different categories of MyPlate, how much you should be aiming to eat in a day, and it gives you some good options for variety. Okay. Lastly, I wanted to talk about how Wellcats can help. So, like Josh had mentioned previously, we have a lot of nutrition offerings that we can help you to optimize your nutrition. And so, first, I want to talk about our pan cooking classes. We are still doing these twice a month, Tuesdays at 6 to 7 p.m., and then on Fridays from 12 to 1 p.m. And these are a group cooking class with me and Amanda and your fellow colleagues. They are in the FCS building, the cooking lab in there. And so I think our next one is, yeah, it's Friday, April 8th at 12 p.m. And each of them have a little mini kind of like lesson that goes along with our theme for the month. So our theme for the month next month will be foods to reduce stress, and it'll be a good time. So we hope that you come out and get some inspiration and learn some new skills. And then also, we are doing one-on-one nutrition counseling, and that will be with Amanda or myself. And these are 1 hour counseling sessions that are tailored to your needs. Oftentimes, I find that I am talking about meal prep just because I think that it can be really difficult to find ways to eat healthy on the go. But like I said, it's up to whatever you are needing. These can be Zoom or in person at the FCF building, I believe, still. And I believe Amanda, if you reach out to Amanda, she schedules those.
Reach out to Josh first and he'll send you our way.
To Josh first. Okay. So yeah, that's all that we have for you guys today. If we just wanted to answer any questions or additional things that you were curious about with meal prepping. I think we will. Are we going to post this on the Teams channel?
The presentation or the video?
The presentation, she asked, Patty.
Well, we usually put the videos onto the YouTube channel. But we can drop a link to the Teams channel. Oh, and it looks like the slides were in an email as well that went out to y'all.
Perfect.
Well, thanks y'all for coming and for listening. We hope you gained some good tips that you can use, maybe even starting this week. Maggie and I are always available to answer questions after if you think of something later and want to email us. And if you're just looking for more wellness and fitness and nutrition information, you can also follow us on Instagram at TXST_Wellcats.
Well, if there are no questions, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye.